All right, today we're going to change things up a little bit, and I'm going to share a tool I recommend that you use, an issue affecting the B2B industry, a thought leader I think you should be paying attention to, and much more. I'm going to be interviewed today by Chad from Rise25, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders, and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I am the host of this show, and every week we have smart CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs, including we've had folks from Netflix, Grubhub, Redfin, Gusto, Kinko's, YPO, EO, Activation Blizzard, and LendingTree. So check out the archives. Lots of great episodes for you to check out there. And before we get into this interview, this episode is brought to you by Rise25. At Rise25, we help businesses to give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping you to run your podcast. We are the easy button for any company to launch and run a podcast. We do three things: strategy, accountability, and full execution. In fact, we invented what some are calling the Wix of B2B podcasting. It's our platform, Podcast Copilot. So if you'd like to learn more, you can go to our website, rise25.com, or email our team at support@rise25.com. All right, I'll turn it over to you, Chad, and you can take it away from here.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks so much for having me today, John. Let's just kind of dive right into it. A recent book or podcast that has caught your attention?
All right. So I've been on a tear lately, reading a lot of books, and one that I'm a fan of here is this one. It's called The Daily Thought Leader. It's by Winnie Hart, who's a friend. I know her through Entrepreneurs Organization. She's very active there. And what's really cool about this is it is so practical for anyone who, and I know there's a lot of people like this, who want to start putting some thought leadership out there, want to build their reputation, increase their visibility online and offline. And this is a very, very practical, really kind of like a workbook. It's even got places in here where you can write into it, and you can just flip it open each day and say, okay, well, here's something that I can do today. And it's very pragmatic for someone who wants to get started. And she also turned it into a podcast as well. She's got 365 episodes in that podcast. So wow. You can go check that out if you prefer to listen, like I do. So definitely check that out. It's The Daily Thought Leader by Winnie Hart.
Is that something like by thought leader, do you mean establishing yourself online, like on LinkedIn or on a blog or something like that?
I mean, including what we're doing right now. So just, recording yourself. It's blogging, it's podcasting, it's videos, it's sharing on LinkedIn, on other social channels. So it's all of those pieces.
Okay, very nice. Does it address thinking of yourself as a fraud, or you could be exposed as a fraud?
Of course. That's a big one. Right. Yeah. I mean, there's so many people that struggle with that. That is one, even if people don't articulate it, they don't realize it, but that is a super common one. And sometimes people kind of self-sabotage without even realizing or recognizing it. So, any treatise or advice on how to become a thought leader really must address that issue.
Okay. Awesome. We'll check that out. A tool that you use, what's one that you've found particularly valuable lately?
So here's the one that I use on a daily basis. In fact, multiple times per week. And I haven't even mentioned it before. So Fathom.video, Fathom AI. I'm not sure exactly what the name of it is, but there's lots of AI note takers out there. This is the one that we've chosen to use. It's very seamless. It comes into all my Zoom meetings. And if you haven't used a note taker before, then a lot of times people are a little bit resistant, hesitant, worried about privacy or something like that. They become so ubiquitous. I come into meetings now and there's, sometimes more note takers than there are people. But it's kind of become my second brain. I'm so used to it now to be able to take that, transcribe your conversation really quickly, create a follow-up email or create a follow-up checklist of to-do items. It's amazing how it captures so many different things. So I've had other members of our team say, I've said to them, like, you need to get one of these as well. So we make sure that other members of the team do it too, because, you have a meeting, there's lots of ideas and action items and things like that come out. And then it can be really difficult, any kind of meeting afterwards, to think about, oh, wait, what did we commit to doing? And what do we need to do? And what was the next steps? And what was the decision on that? And who is going to be responsible for it? And so this crop of AI note takers that have come along that help with virtual meetings have been really incredible with helping you to be more productive and follow through on the things that you said that you're going to do, including myself as well. So yeah, I'm a big fan of it for that reason.
Yeah, it provides a video, provides a video recording of the call.
Right.
It provides a time-stamped transcript of that video recording, and then also another section where it kind of breaks it down into notes and kind of bullet points.
And summaries, there's a
Summaries.
lot of different
Yeah.
things you can do with it.
hmm
And of course, you can take that transcript and then you can do a lot with it. You can go into whatever your LLM is of choice, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever, paste it in there and then turn it into a lot of additional things. So we've started using it for creating SOPs. So if we want to create, document a process around something that we do, I will go and record something on Zoom with Fathom and walk through that process, and you've got a video, you've got a transcript. You can then take that transcript and, using something like ChatGPT, turn it into a multi-step process, and boom, you're done.
Okay. Next topic. Someone in your network who has impacted you recently.
Yeah, so I want to say thank you to Peter Lang. Peter Lang, who is an expert in agency mergers and acquisitions, agency acquisitions and exits podcast is the name of his podcast, and he's lots of great guests on there. And he's a guy who comes from the agency world. He's been an advocate for us and introduced us to some people. So we really appreciate him and what he does, and he shares a lot of wisdom. I had him as a guest on my podcast and shared a lot of wisdom there. So definitely wanted to give him a shout out. Be sure you go check him out, especially if you're an agency owner and you're curious about mergers and acquisitions. He's got a lot of wisdom to share.
What about an issue in the B2B podcasting industry?
Yeah, so I thought about this one, and this is one I've been talking about recently because as we record this, it's the end of the year. I look back in the last 12 months and I realized that we had a fairly significant bump in clients who became clients in part because they had been activated by our email welcome series, aka email indoctrination series. It's a series of emails that you set up that go out to people who have opted in. It's not cold email, but people have opted in. They've come to your website and they've opted in to receive information from you. And the vast majority of people come to your website. Something like 90% of people who come to any website bounce within 60 seconds and they never come back again. But if you have something that's appealing on your website that your ideal client, your ideal prospect needs help with, a pain point, a challenge, something like that, and you have something that can help them save time to achieve what they want to achieve faster, then people oftentimes, not 100% of the time, but many people will give you their email address in order to obtain that thing. And when they do, then that gives you the permission to follow up with them. You can send a series of polite messages, which are kind of like set it and forget it, because you set up these emails and they get dripped out over time. They also go in the order that you want them to. So there are certain questions that your ICP, your ideal client, probably has, and you want to address those questions, those challenges that they have in a particular order each time. When they enter your website, who knows where they came through? They could have come through an old blog post or something like that. So they don't go in the same flow. They don't go in the same order that you want to educate them. And so this allows you to do it, as well as being a way of communicating with those people that would have otherwise just come to your website, bounced, and you'd never hear from them again. So that's something that we're going to be doing a lot more of in the year ahead. After I took a look at it and I realized that it had been, quite successful for us. So if you're a B2B business owner and you are thinking, what is an email welcome series, or do I even need one? I would say absolutely yes, you should do one. And it really differentiates you from a lot of other B2B businesses out there. Probably your competitors are not doing it. And that's a big reason why, if you do it, it can really be invaluable and can really distinguish you, separate you from your competition.
Okay, very interesting. Is there kind of like a line that you want to make sure you don't cross, you don't want to overdo it? Even when somebody gives you permission to sign up or to send them emails?
Well, that's the thing is if you are careful about these things, you monitor them, you will know if you've gone over the line because your unsubscribe rate will spike.
Right, right, right.
So um you I don't think you should be sending 7 emails a day.
Sure.
There's different frequencies work for different people. I'll say sending one email a month is probably not going to do anything. If someone comes, think of it this way: if someone comes to your website because they have a pain or a challenge and they need help with that thing, how urgent is that thing? For some people, maybe it's not that urgent. For others, it's really urgent. Like they need help with it right now. So if they're going out educating themselves on different websites on the internet, then you probably want to send them messages that are appropriate to the level of urgency of the pain or the challenge that they have, right?
Hmm.
If you were an urgent care facility, they might be going to your website because they have a broken arm or a hurt finger or something like that, and they really need some resolution ASAP. For other businesses, it's maybe a longer term sales cycle, and so you could send fewer emails. But I think certainly a couple of times a week, we get so many emails that even if you send a couple of times a week, people aren't going to see many of those emails at all, or they might see them, they might not open it. So you got to send a lot of them. Yeah, I would recommend, for most B2B businesses, you should probably have 20, 30, 40
Hmm.
emails. We have at this point, I think 40 or 50, and
Hmm.
we're going to be adding more to it because our unsubscribe rate has not gone down substantially. It's stayed rather steady. So if those emails that you send are educational, if they are helping people, and if they lead with just providing value to people, then you will earn their trust, and they will even look forward to those emails. They'll be waiting for the next one,
Hmm.
and then that allows them to learn more about you, and then they're more likely to trust you enough to then reach out when the timing is right and they need your assistance on what it is you do.
Okay, awesome. Last thing for you. A question related to client work, maybe a challenge that a client is facing, a case study, recent story, something like that.
Yeah, so we help B2B businesses to create podcasts and to use a podcast to get into conversation with their ideal clients, referral partners, and strategic partners. And the thing that a podcast does, it does many different things. One of the main things it does is it can really open up your funnel. It can get you into conversation with people that you wouldn't get into conversation with otherwise. And so I've had billionaires and CEOs of publicly traded companies. Some of the busiest people on the planet have been on my podcast. And you won't get 100% of people to say yes to be a guest on your podcast, but it is an amazing way to get an opening, to get a foot in the door with people you want to get a foot in the door with. And if you are a B2B business and you are struggling to connect with people, that can be a godsend because it really can open up your funnel. And some of those people are going to want to know more about you, want to have a further conversation with you about what you do. And it's especially helpful if you're a B2B business and you can't tell from the outside whether a business that you're looking at is whether that they need your help or whether they're an ideal client for you, because it gets you into a conversation and then you can ask questions in the kind of the vicinity of the podcast or as you're doing the podcast, before, after, that sort of thing, to figure out whether they could be a good client for you, or vice versa. There's many times that the opposite is true. So that's the big thing that I want to say is that sometimes I've talked to many people who view the podcast as, oh, I need to only talk to people that are my ideal client. Well, sometimes you can't tell if a guest is an ideal client or not.
Hmm.
But if they are inside of a company that could be a good client for you, or if they're a similar job title, or if they're well networked in the industry in which you play, then I say open yourself up to a conversation using the purpose of the podcast, because you never know where it might lead. And oftentimes the best referrals and the best opportunities have come from people that, looking from the outside, I didn't see it. I thought, oh, maybe this isn't going to be that good of a use of time. And then I go and have an amazing conversation for the purpose of the podcast, and they become an advocate. They become a friend. They become a referral partner. They become a strategic partner. They introduce me to someone that I never would have met otherwise. So sometimes you just got to open yourself up to those types of opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. Hey, John, always great to talk to you. Very interesting and informative. Thanks so much for having me today.
Great. Thanks so much, Chad.
So long, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.